We used to.
There you go. We are in chapter 38 still. The last chapter that I dread going through in Genesis. When you teach, there's a remarkable number of those. And Genesis has about 3 or 4 of them. And you get to the end of them and you just go, phew, I'm glad that's over with. And this is one of those. This is the story of Tamar. It's an interruption. I mean, from my perspective, it's an interruption in a single story of this family. And if you think from Genesis chapter 12, really 11, at the end of 11, when Terah is in Haran to the northeast with his 2 kids, Haran and or is it the other one? Nahor, I get them mixed up. Whichever one isn't dead. And then Abraham, and then Abraham's going to come south. But from that point, all the way through to the end of the book, it's a single narrative about sort of a saga. It's a family saga for how this family was chosen by God, this family of Abraham, how it was chosen by God and then taken into Egypt. That's the story. Because ironically, this book doesn't end in some great, well, I mean, it does, it's interesting. It ends in slavery in Egypt, but the slavery part has been, what's it called? Dampened down. What's the word for that? Mitigated by the fact that there's Joseph and his position in Egypt. But it's the story of how this family was chosen by God to be his peculiar people. That's chapter 12. Called out of nothing, created ex nihilo out of nothing, a people of God, and then eventually made its way into Egypt. That's the story, but only as slaves, not as new settlers, just moving into a new place. They end up as a slave people, but because of Joseph, that slave status is it's been suppressed. That's the word I'm looking for. It's been suppressed. I was watching a documentary on this stuff by a Christian. I don't know. It's just interesting to me. But there's some evidence that something happened about this time, 20th century BC, where Egypt went from being a group of tribal warlords, getting then consolidated under the rule of a single king. It just so happens to correspond in the timeline, according to this documentary, with the arrival of Joseph in Egypt. It's really provocative. It's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I can send a link on the Sunday school email list. So, but anyway, if that's the case, then Joseph's influence extended far beyond his particular time. If that's the case, then Egypt was, and it would seem to me that Egypt would have been radically transformed by what Joseph did, and then also by what happened in the Exodus with that defeat of the Egyptians. And there's lots of evidence of that as well. Maybe we can talk about that sometime. But anyway, in that flow of narrative from chapter 12 to the end of the book, there's this story here where, in chapter 37, Joseph is sold into slavery in Egypt. That's the end of the chapter. The Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. And you go, oh, okay, now we're going to move to Egypt in the storytelling. Now we're going to pick up Joseph. Nope. Because for some reason, the author thinks we need to know about this horrible story about Judah and his daughter-in-law Tamar, and him treating her, pretending to be a prostitute, and him taking the bait, if you will. So that's the story here. And I went ahead and got the reading out of the way of the nasty part last week, so I wouldn't have to do it this week. But anyway, to summarize, he his first son dies because he's wicked. Then his second son dies, Onan, for reasons we're not going to get into. And then, yeah. And then so the rule is it Levirate marriage, I think it's called?
Right.
You have to give the next one down has to take the responsibility of continuing the name of his dead brother. So he takes the brother's wife as wife. And then those offspring are allocated, so to speak, to the brother's name, not his name. Well, Onan didn't want any part of that. And then to make a short story even shorter, he gets killed by God. So apparently God takes this seriously too. My hunch is that the family was just so nasty, nobody would be surprised. All things considered. So that leaves the third son, Shua. Is that his name? Not Shua. Sheila. Yeah, she was the mother of Judah's daughter, Judah's wife. Anyway, so she was younger. So Judah says, remember, there's just treachery and deceit all the way through this family. From the top down, Jacob down. Jacob's may be in the past, but he's past it. They got the genes. The sons have the genes. So Genes, yeah, genes of Jacob. So Judah says, well, why don't you, Sheila's too young, Sheila's too young. So why don't you just wait at your father's house, Tamar, and then when he's old enough, you two can do the Levirate marriage thing. So she goes away. And you get this little statement there at the end of verse 11. For he feared that he too would die like his brothers. So Tamar went, and now she's going to stay at her father's house. And
back to the first verse, where it happened that Judah went down from his brothers. Seems like he separated himself from the rest of the clan before all this happened. I don't know if that foreshadows the division between Judah and the rest of Israel, or
yeah, they're not going to be separated in the next chapter over.
No, but we don't know how long this takes, because I mean, he had sons born who were old enough to get married, so this was years.
We also don't know whether this is before or after
That's true.
either of those events.
Right, it's not necessarily chronological.
It says at that time.
Yeah. What is
Yep. All right.
sending it to Potiphar?
So he's going to have no male heirs. The implication is that he will have no male heirs. Plus he just doesn't want his third son to get killed. Eventually you have to say, maybe it's me. If you're Judah, maybe it's us. Maybe we're the problem, but that moment never comes. Not yet. Anyway, it will come. So she's told to go away. That's clearly how she takes it. Go away. Then verse 12, which I think we'll start there. Did I have something that I wanted to distract myself with? Hold on a minute.
I'll distract you so you don't have to worry about distracting yourself.
No, I don't think so. Forgot. I don't think I have any slides or anything to waste time on. No, that's going to be in 37. 39. Okay, in the course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. She was a Canaanite. When Judah was comforted, whatever that means, he went up to Timnah to his sheep shearers. He and this guy just arrives out of nowhere. He and his friend Hira, the Adullamite. Well, what's an Adullamite? Well, I don't really know what an Adullamite is, except that, I got this map off the internet. Here's down here in the bottom right, here's Canaan. There's the Dead Sea. There's the Jordan. And so, you got this balloon, this red balloon right here over something called whatever this city is. And then over here you got Adullam. So if the person who put this chart is correct, then it's a person from this city right here, or it's an ethnic group. But he just appears out of nowhere. Judah's consorting he's taking Canaanite wives. And we're going to find out what he's going to do in a minute. His friends are Canaanites. He's a Canaanite, essentially. Judah is. He's acting. What?
Timnah is up there.
Is Tim up there? I don't know. Where is it? On the right? Right here. Okay. Is that where it really is? I don't know. Good enough for me. It's good enough for me. So they're sheep, they're shepherds, so they got to wander with their flocks or herds. What are they called with sheep? I don't know.
Flocks,
Gaggles, herds. All right, we'll go with herds.
flock.
So this, for some reason, the author doesn't think we need to know Judah's wife's name, but she was daughter. She was daughter. He's married to Shua's daughter. He thinks we need to know his mother-in-law's name, but not his. Is that right?
She was.
Yeah. Oh, she was.
His name was Canaanite, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. One or the other. But the point is, he wants us to know the name of one of the parent of the wife, but we don't need to know the wife's name. And then we do need to know the name of this sort of sketchy Adullamite, whatever that is. But maybe that's the point. The Adulamites were known to be sketchy. And so that's anybody at the time would know, oh, an Adullamite, got to watch out for those guys. So that's Hira. He's introduced. And he doesn't come off looking so good either. But the larger point to me is he's just acting like he's just a Canaanite. There's no sense that he's anything other than a person of the land of Canaan. And when Tamar was told, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear, so there's people reporting on this to her, say, hey, your father-in-law, she's sitting over there, waiting for whatever comes next. We don't know how she feels about this being business of moving from one son to the next. What does she think of all this? We're about to find out. Or maybe she's just getting even. I don't know. But she's told, yeah, he's up in Timnah now. So she apparently has a plan ready and waiting. Like that. She immediately springs into action. The end of verse 12 there. Verse 14. She took off her widow's garments, still wearing widow's garments, covered herself with a veil, wrapping herself up. What's going on here, Tamar? What are you doing? What you thinking about? And sat at the entrance to Enaim, whatever that is. I don't know what that is. Which is on the road to Timnah, waiting for him. Now, is she going to stab him? Is she going to jump out or something? Of course, she saw, now the motivation, for she saw that Shelah was grown up and she had not been given to him in marriage. So there's a lot at stake here. One of which is she's out the stuff as well. She's out of all inheritance. He was just kicking her out. She's on her own. Go back to your father's house. And the rest of it was just a song and a dance. Go on until my son grows up, and then we'll do the thing. Obviously, she didn't think so. When Judah, what does she know about her father-in-law? How did she know that this is the kind of thing you would do that would have that Judah? Why this? What did she know about Judah? that she said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go pretend to be a prostitute. Unless they all did this, I don't know. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. What prostitutes do, I guess, back then. And he turned to her at the roadside and said, "Come, let me come into you." For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. Okay, so he gets score 1 point for that. If he knew it was his daughter-in-law, he wouldn't have done it. Okay. And she said, "What will you give me?" Talk about a business transaction. "That you may come into me." And he answered, "I will send you a goat, a young goat from the flock." Do we really need to know the details of the transaction like this? You know, wow. And she said, "If you give me a pledge until you send it." In other words, like the King James, "What pledge will you give me? How do I know you're gonna," boy, does she know Judah. How do I know that you will send me the kid? You're saying, you know, I'll pay you later. It's that old Looney Tunes. What's the hamburger kid guy? Who's the hamburger guy? "Please give me a hamburger for which I will pay you on Tuesday." Looney Tunes.
I have no idea what we're talking about.
No,
Wimpy was.
Wimpy. That's it. Yeah. He says it over and over again in Looney Tunes. But anyway, that's right here. Yeah, I'll send you a check. It's you know.
Seems like she had anticipated a few moves ahead as to what was gonna happen to her, and so she's planning, you know, her own protection.
No question. She knows how this is gonna end. This is an insurance policy. She knows there will never be a kid because she's not going to allow that because she wants the other thing to happen that we'll get into. So she says, "I need a pledge because I don't trust you." So he said, "What pledge shall I give you?" And she replied, "Your signet and your cord and your staff." I'm not sure what a signet is, and I'm not sure what a cord is. "That is in your hand."
That would be what you would take the ring and dip it in the wax.
Not sure what the cord is. Staff seems pretty obvious, but.
In other words, those things there that identify you as who you are, that's what I want from you. So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Boy, that happened quick. Then she arose and went away. Taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood. What on earth, Tamar, are you doing? What's the bigger plan here? Well, it turns out Tamar can match Jacob step for step when it comes to deceit. It's like if you don't have the gene, when you come into the family, they go through a training program to get you up to speed on deception. This is the best deception in the whole book right here. This is every bit as good as what Jacob did to Isaac. That's just cooking a meal. But this right here took months and probably some planning. All right, so what else? But what have I got to say about this? Let's go through the deceptions here. Jacob deceived Isaac, and so did Rebekah. Laban deceived Jacob. Jacob deceived Laban. Judah deceived Jacob. Where did I get that at? Oh, Joseph and the coat. That already happened. 37. That's interesting. Jacob deceived Esau. And then in almost like you sow what you reap what you sow. He then gets deceived by Laban. Then Judah deceived Jacob. And then you sow what you reap what you sow. He gets deceived by Tamar.
It goes back even further. Isaac deceived Abimelech.
Yeah.
And Abraham deceived both Pharaoh and Abimelech.
And then it's going to continue in Egypt with Joseph. Deception's not over yet. This book is going to end up in a web of deceit. This book ends in a web of deceit. And Joseph's going to trump them all. It will turn out that he will be the most accomplished deceiver in the entire book of Genesis. The difference is the people he deceives will deserve it. And they'll know it. They'll admit it. They'll say it out loud to him in his presence. All right. When Judah, here comes the Adullamite. Why not just, why? Why not? I mean, what a strange thing. You got a friend around that handles this kind of thing for you? It's just weird. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adullamite, calls him his friend the second time now, to take back the pledge from the woman's hand. So it's the woman now, not Tamar, as if through Judah's eyes. She's just the woman. He did not find her. So he asked the men of the place, where is the cult prostitute? I'm not exactly sure why they're throwing in the word cult there. Who was at Enaim, whatever that is, at the roadside. And they said, there's no prostitute has been here. So he returned to Judah, said, I have not found her. Also, the men of the place said, there's no prostitute here. So Judah replied, let her keep the things as her own, or we shall be laughed at. I sent this young goat, and you did not find her. So let's just bury it. We don't want all this coming to light. So we're not going to go raise a ruckus in the city. Hey, you're a prostitute, this and that. You're not going to do that. He just wants it to go away at this point. So that's that. About 3 months later, 3 months. Kind of hard to hide after 3 months. Judah was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been immoral. Moreover, she is pregnant by immorality. Judah says, maybe something like, hey, this is great. I get a chance to get rid of her because she's kind of a thorn in the flesh. She's kind of an annoyance over there. She's going to want my son. I don't want to give her my son. It's embarrassing. So we get to just do this. Reading between the lines. So Judah says, bring her out and let her be burned. And she's pregnant, so there's two. As she was being brought out, man, she's playing it right to the end. She is playing it right to the very edge. As she was being brought out, she sent word to her father-in-law. So somebody else is doing this. By the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant. She gives him the things. She said, please identify whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff, and obviously it's undeniable. So he went, he decided to let it all go so he would avoid being laughed at, shamed, publicly shamed. He would have to go chase her down to get his stuff back, and that would be embarrassing. So to avoid mockery and public shaming, he just lets it go. And oh boy, do you reap what you sow. Now it's coming to light in this grand display of hubris where he's ordered her death, and everybody's probably gathered around. And this is an act of public shaming. That's the whole point. So she's going to come out and everybody's going to shame her, and he's going to shame her, only they're not going to shame her. He's the one who's going to be ashamed. So he immediately backs down. And Judah identified them, the cord, the staff, and the signet, and said, she is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah. And he did not know her again. So my hunch is this had probably more to do with he kicked her out of the inheritance than really anything else. Than that she really wanted to be in that family. I don't know. But that's the way that that part of the story ends.
Interesting if we had something to learn about the other 12 sons' wives and how they came about and all that stuff. The only other one we know about is Joseph's. But they aren't important to the story, obviously. But there's a reason for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mother of Manasseh and Ephraim are an Egyptian who was the daughter of a priest in Egypt.
But I think one of the reasons that we're told this story is because if we went to Matthew chapter 1,
Right.
Tamar is mentioned and Perez, her son, is the foul born into Christ.
Yeah, we'll get that. That's the next part of the story.
Get that at Christmas time again.
So was he sorry for what he did? Or was he just publicly humiliated?
I think he's
You know,
probably
I don't-
humiliated.
The Mosaic penalty for adultery. Let's take a look. Leviticus 20, verse 10. From the vantage point of the people who were getting this writing, in the context of when the Genesis was written, what are they thinking?
Along with Mark.
Man commits adultery with the wife of his neighbor. Both the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. If a man lies with his father's wife, Reuben, both of them shall surely be put to death. If a man lies with his daughter-in-law, both of them shall surely be put to death. So according to the Levitical code, 2 of the 12 tribes should have never happened because both of those sons should have been put to death. Unbelievable. So that's that.
Well, he didn't just send her away after that, so he didn't know her then, but he did take responsibility for probably her and her son. Yeah.
Have intimacy with her.
Yeah, you would assume at this point that he was forced to do something,
Mhm.
you know. I doubt that she just said, oh, okay, now that I've made my point, I'm gonna go away now. You know, because there is a certain amount of shame on her part too in this. So now the author thinks that we should care about the result of this pregnancy. So again, from the vantage point of the readers of the book of Genesis, when it was written, post-Exodus, you know, what meaning is there to this for them? Why would this matter to them? How would they have understood it? And I'm not sure I don't have an answer to that. When the time of her labor came, there were twins in her womb. And when she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, this one came out first. Why does it matter? Inheritance. All about inheritance. Let there be no argument or debate about it. But as he drew back his hand, behold, his brother came out, and she said, what a breach you have made for yourself. Therefore his name was called Perez. And afterward his brother came out with a scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah. So once you have the usurping of the firstborn, like with Jacob and Esau. And in both cases, it was the younger who did the usurping. Right? Jacob did it. You got the story in the birth narrative of Jacob and Esau where he grabs Esau by the heel, foreshadowing what's going to happen. Then he did something to usurp Esau, the firstborn. And now you have this son here, and he does something to usurp the firstborn thing. And so that's the story of Tamar and her twins, and specifically Perez, who comes out first, but is not identified as the firstborn in the story. What's the, where is it? Matthew 1? Abraham was the father of Isaac, Isaac the father of Jacob, Jacob, the father of Judah and his brothers. He doesn't care about any of the other brothers. Judah leaves over how Judah was the father of. Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar. For some reason, decides to throw the whole thing in there. Doesn't just say, which he could have, because it's the way he's doing the rest of them. Judah was the father of Perez and Perez the father of Hezron. He doesn't do that. The Bible is interested in this story. Tells the whole story in Genesis 38, and now it makes its way in Cliff Notes, summary in Matthew chapter 1. Perez and Zerah by Tamar. So you have this mention of Tamar.
I don't think it's relevant in any way, except my great grandfather was named Zerah.
Really?
Really? Was that,
His mother picked that name out of the Bible, I don't.
that is, well, probably because he didn't do anything wrong. If you're going to go look for somebody who didn't do anything wrong, So, I don't know.
Like name.
That's, interesting.
What's interesting is the fact that within just a few verses there, you have mention of 3 women that were not, actually Jewish, they're all Gentiles, are part of the.
And there's allusion to a 4th woman too.
Yeah.
We'll cover that more at Christmas time. Sure.
So this brings up the issue of, I mentioned the phrase last week. I think it's a Latin phrase, sensus plenior. And what it means is the expanded meaning of the text. And so you have the meaning that would have been understood by the audience to whom it was written. And then you have what you hear me often call the divine narrative, the divine meaning. And then you have the meaning, there's a larger meaning to it, which the readers would not have understood. But I firmly believe that the writing you must always try to find the meaning to the original audience who received the writing. And I am at a loss on this one. Why they would need to know, why they would want to know, why it mattered to them. Okay, you have this nasty story about Judah, but why do you go on and tell about the twins and then the one usurping the other and the detail? There's a lot of local color and a lot of color in this. And I don't know whether they just scratch their heads, but
I mean, I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but by the time of the Exodus, Judah had moved ahead as being the largest tribe.
you didn't need this story for that.
And but I don't know.
All you needed,
Some more.
all you needed was the blessing on him from the end of the book by Jacob.
The only 2 children that you really get a whole lot of background information about are Judah and Joseph. Other than for that one sentence about Reuben. It's interesting.
Well, God extends his grace to horrible sinners.
Well, right, and if you go further down the chronology of Israel, they became known by being Joseph and Judah. In other words, Ephraim was sometimes used as a euphemism for the whole northern kingdom, and Judah for the southern kingdom.
So the lineage from Judah to Jesus goes through Tamar, not his wife, who is unnamed in this story, who is there long enough to have 3 kids, 2 of whom is evil, and then she dies. But you go from Judah to this incestuous thing with Tamar. That's the line of Judah to Jesus. In the lineage of Jesus, then you have Tamar, who was a Canaanite, who conceived by incest while posing as a prostitute. You have Rahab, who was a Canaanite, who was a prostitute. You have Ruth, who was a Moabite. So was David, therefore. And you have Bathsheba, who was married to a Hittite, who birthed Solomon in an act of adultery with David. I'm sorry, who birthed a son who died at birth, and then who had Solomon with David. The birth narrative omits, Jesus' birth narrative omits Sarah, Rebecca, and Leah.
I wonder if part of the reason for the story is to show that man does not gain any glory, it's all God's work, and God is going to get glory regardless of what man does.
Where does that happen in this story?
Well, the fact that you have descendants that are taking place, that are coming about in a sinful way.
Yeah, 2,000 years later. But this story right here, nobody looks at this story and goes, God be glorified. Nobody's going to read this story. You get to this story.
I meant it more along the lines of trying to steal God's glory. I mean, we can't claim anybody along that line can't complain they can't consider themselves to be important.
No, I agree. That's all. There's a lot of inferences you can draw. Why the lineage? Why they do the lineage the way that they did? Because you didn't have to mention Tamar. You just have to say, however it was said. Look at the rest of the pattern. Ram, the father of Amminadab, Amminadab, the father of Nahshon, and so on and so forth. So you just say Judah, the father of Perez, Perez, the father of Hezron. You just,
By Ruth.
but for some reason, he throws these details in about that are a part of stories that are sketchy. And you go, why did they do that? And that's a great, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why they, it is not the narrative, it's not the lineage we would write.
Yeah,
It's not the lineage we would write.
it goes along with the phrase you use quite often, you can't make this stuff up.
You wouldn't, why, how about the lineage of Jesus? They're going to throw in the story of go back. Hey, in case you don't know who Tamar is, go back and read Genesis chapter 38 and you'll see the nasty story about Tamar and Judah.
The whole idea of all of these is that God also was going to eventually accept Gentiles.
Yeah, but in Matthew's gospel, it definitely is because he highlights Gentiles in that as well.
Yeah, it's glaring to me.
Anybody.
It's glaring to me that the part of the point is to state straightforwardly that not only are there Gentiles in Jesus' line, there's Gentiles virtually from the start.
And of course, as you read on from Matthew, Jesus will say, I didn't come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. And boy, was he was a sinner.
So
Maybe God's making his point, we just don't know how to put it in words.
well, I'm on the public record on this. I've never been confident in I am supremely unconfident. What's the word? Doubtful, skeptical of human ability to discern, read between the lines, God's message. Absolutely, especially in narrative. Because what we want to do is we read narrative and we're reading it with our own filters about the gospel. And so you want to interpret it that way. And I don't think we're good at that
And
as humans.
then there's the God's ways are not our ways.
Yeah. So that's now we can move on from Tamar. We can only go up from here, right? So it is, I agree. I do believe that Genesis 38 is some kind of bottom. It's kind of a moral bottom in the narrative. We've reached the bottom of this. It's the moral low point. It might be the moral low point in Genesis and for this family. So there is a climb up now that's going to finally reach something inspiring in chapter 44. So about five or six chapters from now. But yeah, so let's go ahead and just get started on Joseph. Now we're at 39. How many chapters are there in Genesis? So 12 chapters are dedicated to Joseph and his time in Egypt, 12 out of 50. So almost 25% of the book of Genesis is Joseph.
Also moving on, I like to say I appreciate what was brought out in the story. And it's quite humbling.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I appreciate the time spent on it.
I'm not sure what I brought out. I said some things about the story and then scratched my head.
It's just details first.
Yeah. There is, I will say this. There is nothing, even in the story of Jesus, there is nothing sugarcoated about the history of redemption. It is laid bare and it has dirt on it. Even with Jesus in the garden. That was his bottom, so to speak. Even in the garden.
That laid bare really stands out.
Okay. Meanwhile, back in Egypt, 37, he was sold to Potiphar. Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian. So you have, what do you get? You get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different descriptors about Joseph's new master. Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian. So Joseph has a new identity. He has left Jacob behind. He has left Canaan behind. He's going to make a statement in a little bit about forgetting all his troubles. Canaan is in the past. He's an Egyptian. In almost every way, you would think, based on the story. But anyway, he's sold to this man from the Ishmaelites or the Midianites who had brought him down there. So summary statement to take us back to 37. And then you get this statement. The Lord was with Joseph. So I highlighted in red, or whatever color that is, because what you're going to see, it's bracketed. The bracketed story. And he became, and therefore, because the Lord was with Joseph, that's Yahweh, was with Joseph, the God of Abraham. The God of Abraham was with Joseph. So what happened here? You have Canaan. You got all these gods in Canaan, idols. You also have Yahweh, the God of Abraham, the creator of all things. The lineage, the God of Abraham is different precisely because of what we know about him from Genesis chapter 1 through Genesis chapter 11. So he spent 11 chapters setting up the fact that this God, the God that is about to reveal himself to Abraham, is unlike any other God and absolutely unlike any Canaanite God whatsoever. And that God, the creator of all things, whose power is without limit, who has no geographical boundaries, who transcends the universe itself, has now followed Joseph from Canaan to Egypt, which is going to be great for Joseph and terrible for the Egyptians. And there's nothing they can do about it. So there's no local God here. He isn't constrained by any geographical boundary, which is how they would have thought of it. And because he was Yahweh, the creator, the God of Abraham, the creator of all things, was with Joseph in Egypt and not just in Canaan, he became a successful man. And he was in the house of his Egyptian master. So the Egyptians have no idea what they brought with them, what they bought into, if you will, when this man bought. They bought a slave who was going to change the nation. His master saw, Potiphar, the captain of the guard, saw that the Lord, Yahweh, was with him, and that Yahweh, the God of Abraham, caused all that he did to succeed in his hand. So he sees the distinction between, he sees the connection between Joseph and this God that Joseph obviously worships, and that it's different. It's not like these other gods of Egypt. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him. And he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. Hint, hint, foreshadowing, prefiguring what's coming next. From that time, from the time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord, Yahweh, the creator of all things, the God of Abraham, blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. But the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in house and field. Hint, hint, foreshadowing, field. And begin now this kind of special relationship between Egypt and Israel, and really, in a sense, between God and Egypt as well. And that'll carry the rest of the way through the Bible. Starts right here. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and because of him, he had no concern about anything but the food he ate. So it took him that long, 6 verses, for Joseph to establish himself. This man is going someplace. This man is going places in Egypt. You can't keep a good man down. And, no matter what happens, you already know, no matter what happens, and the narrative is going south for Joseph real quick, but no matter what happens, just like when the Israelites multiply in Egypt, in Exodus, they cannot be kept down because they found favor for different reasons. Because they have the God of Israel, they have the God of Abraham, who stayed in Egypt, even though we know nothing about the period of time between between chapter 50 of Genesis and chapter 1 of Exodus. We don't know anything at all about this people. But we do know that when Genesis 50 ends, God is in Egypt, blessing that family. And when we arrive at Exodus 1, he is in that family. Only here, it's through his providential prospering of Joseph. There on the other side, it's going to be by multiplying the nation relentlessly. There's nothing the Egyptians can do about it.
I never thought about it before. At this moment, the Lord was with Joseph and he became successful. Potiphar's house was blessed. It's kind of a parallel. It's kind of like a parallel with the Ark of the Covenant.
Yep.
When
That's the best.
when the Philistines captured the Ark of the Covenant and God, chopped off the head of their God and everything else, made them fall down and everything, worship them. So they put them on the cart, put it on the cart. The first place they went to, God blessed that house. Until David said, hey, we need to bring the Ark of the Covenant. And then when the gentleman put his hand on it and got killed, David left that ark and that person and he was blessed until he brought it right to Israel. So kind of a parallel here with Joseph and the Ark of the Covenant. Wherever that Ark of the Covenant was, they were blessed.
Yeah. Cool.
God blesses who he will bless.
So we'll pick up Joseph. He's a remarkable guy. And he had a lot of abilities. God was with him, but he had a lot of abilities. And we'll talk about that, especially.
Foreshadowing the fact that God was just making this plan that told Abraham in 15 that I'm gonna make you a great nation, but it's gonna go through Egypt. So God's plans were just being fulfilled that he told Abraham.
I'm gonna make of you a great nation, and you're not gonna like it. I'm gonna leave that part out. All right, we'll go ahead and stop.